I never thought my own family would be the ones to destroy me. But here I am, sitting in a lawyer's office, trying to piece together how the people who were supposed to love me ended up stealing everything I had. My name is David. I'm 32 years old. This story is about my parents, Linda and Robert, and my older sister, Amanda. For most of my life, I thought we were close. Sure, Amanda always got more attention growing up, but I figured that was just how it was with firstborns. She was the golden child. I was the backup plan. My grandmother, Margaret, passed away 6 months ago. She was 89 and had been sick for a while, so it wasn't unexpected. What was unexpected was finding out she'd left me her house. Not my parents. Not Amanda. Me. The house was worth about $400,000. It was paid off, in great condition, in a nice neighborhood. My grandmother had told me years ago that she wanted me to have it because I'd been the one who visited her every week, who called her, who actually cared. When the will was read, my parents seemed fine with it. My mom hugged me and said Grandma made the right choice. My dad shook my hand and said I deserved it. Amanda congratulated me and said she was happy for me. I believed them. I actually believed they were okay with it. 2 weeks after the funeral, my dad called me. He said we needed to talk about the house. Could I come over for dinner? I said sure, not thinking anything of it. When I got there, the whole family was waiting. Mom, Dad, Amanda, and Amanda's husband, Kyle. My dad started by saying he knew Grandma left me the house, but he thought we should discuss what to do with it as a family. I said, okay, what's there to discuss? It's mine. Grandma wanted me to have it. My mom jumped in. She said, well, we think it would be better if we sold the house and split the money. As a family. She said it wasn't fair that I got everything while Amanda got nothing. That Grandma must have been confused at the end, not thinking clearly. That we should honor her memory by sharing equally. I sat there stunned. I said Grandma wasn't confused. She knew exactly what she was doing. She left me the house because I was there for her. Where were you guys when she needed help? When she was in the hospital? When she needed someone to drive her to appointments? Amanda got defensive. She said she was busy with her own life. She had a husband and a job. She couldn't drop everything to play nurse. I said I had a job too, but I made time. That's the difference. My dad's face got red. He said I was being selfish. That family comes first, and I should want to share with my sister. I said family did come first, which is why Grandma left the house to the family member who actually acted like family. The conversation got heated. My mom started crying, saying I was tearing the family apart. Amanda called me ungrateful, said everything our parents did for me growing up, and this is how I repay them. Kyle just sat there looking uncomfortable, but nodding along with whatever Amanda said. I left that dinner feeling sick, but I told myself they'd calm down. They'd realize I was right. The house was mine legally and morally. They'd get over it. I was so wrong. A week later, I got a call from my dad. He was calm this time. Apologetic even. He said he was sorry for how dinner went. Said they'd been emotional and weren't thinking straight. He asked if I could come by and sign some papers. Just formalities for the estate. Some tax documents that needed my signature. I should have been suspicious, but I wanted things to be okay with my family. So I went over. My dad had a stack of papers ready. He explained each one quickly. This one's for the property tax. This one's for the title transfer. This one's for the estate settlement. I skimmed them and signed where he pointed. That was my first mistake. I trusted my own father, and he used that trust to screw me over completely. 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail from a law firm I'd never heard of. It said that according to the documents I'd signed, I had agreed to sell my grandmother's house and split the proceeds equally among all family members. My portion would be 1/4. The other 3/4 would go to my parents and Amanda. I read that letter 5 times trying to make sense of it. Then I called the law firm. The paralegal who answered confirmed it. I had signed a sales agreement and a distribution agreement. The house was being listed for sale next week. Once it's sold, I'd get my share minus fees and expenses. I hung up and immediately called my dad. I was shaking, I was so angry. When he answered, I said, "What the hell did you make me sign?" He played dumb at first. Said he didn't know what I was talking about. I said the law firm just sent me a letter saying I agreed to sell Grandma's house and split the money. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Well, yes, that's what those papers were. We explained that to you." "No," I said. "You told me they were tax documents. You lied to me. You tricked me into signing away my inheritance." My dad's tone changed. Got colder. He said I signed the papers willingly. Nobody forced me. And if I tried to fight it, I'd just waste money on lawyers and lose anyway. Better to accept it and move on. At least I'd still get something out of it. I said, "You're unbelievable. You're my father, and you stole from me." He said he didn't steal anything. He just made sure things were fair. Then he hung up. I sat there in shock. My own parents had scammed me, had lied to my face, and manipulated me into giving up hundreds of thousands of dollars. I felt sick, betrayed, completely blindsided. I called my sister. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe this was just my parents. But when Amanda answered and I told her what happened, she laughed. Actually laughed. She said, "Oh yeah, Dad told me about that. Pretty smart, honestly. You were being stubborn, so he had to get creative." I said, "You knew? You knew they were tricking me, and you didn't say anything?" Amanda said, "Why would I? You were being selfish, keeping the whole house. Now we all get a fair share. That's how family works, David. Maybe you should try thinking about someone other than yourself for once." I hung up on her. I couldn't believe it. My entire family had conspired against me, had planned this whole thing. The fake apology, the emotional manipulation, the documents. All of it was a setup. I immediately called a lawyer. Found one who specialized in estate law and fraud. Her name was Patricia. I told her everything. She listened carefully and took notes. When I finished, she said, "Okay, this is definitely fraud. Your father misrepresented what you were signing. That makes the documents invalid. We can fight this." She said it wouldn't be cheap, though. Could cost $10,000 to $15,000 in legal fees. Maybe more if it dragged out. But she was confident we could win. I told her to do whatever it took. I wasn't letting them get away with this. Patricia filed an emergency motion to stop the sale of the house. The judge granted a temporary hold while we investigated. That bought us time. But it also meant war with my family. My mom called crying. Said I was destroying the family over money. That I should be ashamed of myself. I said I should be ashamed? You're the ones who committed fraud. She said it wasn't fraud, it was just helping me see reason. Then she said if I didn't drop the lawsuit, she'd never speak to me again. I said fine, don't speak to me. And I hung up. My dad sent me a text calling me ungrateful and selfish. Said everything they'd done for me my whole life, and this is how I repay them. Amanda sent a long message about how I was tearing the family apart over greed. How Grandma would be disappointed in me. That one hurt. Because Grandma wouldn't be disappointed in me. She'd be furious at them. She'd left me that house specifically because she knew what they were like. She'd seen how they treated me growing up. Always putting Amanda first. Always making excuses for her while holding me to impossible standards. Grandma had been the only one who really saw me. Who really cared. And they tried to take that away from me. The legal battle took 3 months. 3 months of my family texting me horrible things. Calling me names. Telling extended family that I was greedy and trying to steal from them. Cousins I hadn't talked to in years were messaging me saying I should be ashamed. Aunts and uncles were taking my parents' side without even hearing my story. My parents had spun it perfectly. They told everyone that Grandma had left the house to all of us equally, but I was trying to keep it all for myself. That I'd hired a lawyer to cut them out. They painted themselves as the victims and me as the villain. And everyone believed them. I tried explaining the truth to a few relatives, but they didn't want to hear it. My Uncle Mike actually told me I should respect my parents and drop the lawsuit. When I told him about the fraud, about how Dad had tricked me into signing, he said I was probably remembering it wrong. That my parents would never do something like that. That's when I realized how good my parents were at manipulation. They'd spent my whole life doing this. Controlling the narrative. Making themselves look good while making me look bad. I'd just been too close to see it clearly. Patricia was great though. She dug into everything. Got copies of all the documents. Interviewed me multiple times about exactly what my dad had said when I signed. She found an expert witness, another lawyer, who reviewed the papers and testified that they were deliberately written to be confusing. That the language was designed to trick someone who wasn't reading carefully. We also got my grandmother's lawyer to testify. His name was Mr. Harrison, and he'd known my grandma for 30 years. He said she'd been very clear about wanting me to have the house. That she'd specifically discussed it with him multiple times. That she was of sound mind when she made the will and knew exactly what she was doing. He also said something that shocked me. He said my parents had tried to get Grandma to change her will about a year before she died. They'd come to his office with her and pressured her to split everything equally. Mr. Harrison had asked to speak with Grandma alone, and she'd told him she didn't want to change anything. That she was keeping the will as is. My parents had apparently been angry about it. So they'd known for a year that I was getting the house. A whole year to plan how they'd steal it from me. The dinner where they asked me to share wasn't some emotional reaction. It was premeditated. When that didn't work, they moved to Plan B. The fake apology and the fraudulent documents. Learning that made me feel even worse. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. They'd actively planned to scam their own son. Had sat around discussing how to do it. Had prepared legal documents specifically designed to trick me. What kind of parents do that? The court date finally came. We all had to be there. My parents, Amanda, their lawyers, me, and Patricia. I hadn't seen them in person since this all started. When I walked into the courtroom and saw them sitting there, my mom wouldn't even look at me. My dad glared. Amanda whispered something to Kyle, and they both smirked. The hearing took 4 hours. Both sides presented evidence. Their lawyer argued that I'd signed the documents willingly and understood what I was signing. That there was no fraud, just a family trying to settle an estate fairly. Patricia destroyed that argument. She had me testify about exactly what my dad said. About how he'd called them tax documents. About how he'd rushed me through signing. She presented the expert testimony about the confusing language. She had Mr. Harrison testify about my grandmother's clear intentions and my parents' previous attempt to change the will. Then she did something brilliant. She subpoenaed my dad's text messages and emails. And she found messages between my dad and Amanda from before Grandma died. Messages where they discussed how unfair it was that I was getting the house. Where they talked about finding a way to fix it. Where my dad literally wrote, "I'll figure something out, don't worry." The judge was not happy. He asked my dad directly if he'd misrepresented what the documents were. My dad tried to dance around it, but the judge pushed. Finally, my dad admitted he may not have been completely clear, but said he thought I understood. The judge wasn't buying it. After hearing everything, the judge took a 15-minute recess. When he came back, he ruled in my favor. He said the documents were obtained through fraud and misrepresentation. They were invalid. The house was mine, as my grandmother intended. He also ordered my parents to pay my legal fees. All $15,000 of it. I wanted to feel relieved, but I just felt empty. I'd won, but I'd lost my family in the process. Or maybe I'd never really had them to begin with. After the ruling, my parents stormed out of the courtroom without saying a word to me. Amanda stopped to hiss that I'd regret this. That I destroyed our family over money and karma would come for me. I just stared at her. She really believed she was the victim here. That I was the bad guy. The delusion was incredible. Patricia congratulated me. Said it was a clear-cut case once we got all the evidence. She told me to change the locks on my grandmother's house immediately just in case my parents had keys. I hadn't even thought of that, but she was right. Who knows what they might do now? I drove straight to the house after court. It had been sitting empty for months during all this legal drama. When I unlocked the door and stepped inside, it smelled stale. I walked through the rooms my grandmother had loved. Her furniture was still there. Her photos on the walls. It felt wrong being there without her. I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed that afternoon. Then I just sat in her living room and cried. Not because I was happy I'd won. Because I'd lost my family. My parents. My sister. They were gone. And for what? Money? A house. How did we get here? My phone started blowing up that evening. Extended family members who'd heard about the court ruling. Most of them were angry, saying I should be ashamed for taking my parents to court, for embarrassing them like that, for choosing money over family. A few asked for my side of the story, but most had already made up their minds. The worst was my Aunt Sarah, my mom's sister. She left me a voicemail calling me a disgusting human being. Said my grandmother would be rolling over in her grave, seeing what I'd become. That I was dead to the family. That I should never show my face at another family gathering. Her words cut deep because I'd always liked Aunt Sarah growing up. She'd been kind to me. Or so I thought. Only 2 family members reached out with support. My cousin Jessica, who was around my age, sent me a text saying she was sorry for what I was going through. That she knew my parents could be manipulative. And my Uncle Tom, my dad's brother, called me. He said he'd heard my side from Patricia's court filings that were public record. He said what my parents did was wrong, and he was sorry. That meant more to me than he probably knew. A week after the court case, things got worse. I came home from work to find my apartment doors slightly open. I lived in an apartment while figuring out what to do with Grandma's house. Someone had broken in. The place was trashed. Drawers dumped out. Couch cushions slashed. My TV was smashed. Spray paint on the walls saying thief and greedy. I called the police immediately. They came and took a report. Asked if I had any idea who might have done this. I told them about the court case. About my family. The officer wrote it all down, but said without proof there wasn't much they could do. No cameras in my building. No witnesses. But I knew. I knew it was them. Or someone they'd sent. This was revenge. This was them trying to punish me for winning. I took photos of everything and sent them to Patricia. She said we could potentially file a civil suit, but again, without proof, it would be hard to win. I started staying at my grandmother's house after that. Didn't feel safe in my apartment. Got a security system installed. Cameras. Motion sensors. The works. I wasn't taking any chances. If they'd broken into my apartment, they might try for the house next. 2 days later, my dad showed up. I saw him on the security camera walking up to the front door. He rang the doorbell. I almost didn't answer but decided to face him. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. I said, "What do you want?" He looked older somehow. Tired. He said, "We need to talk." I said, "We have nothing to talk about." He said, "Please, David. 5 minutes." I sighed and stepped outside, closing the door behind me. Wasn't letting him in the house. My dad started by saying he was sorry. That things got out of hand. That he never meant for it to go this far. I said, "You committed fraud. You tried to steal from me. You trashed my apartment." He immediately denied the apartment thing. Said he had nothing to do with that. I said, "Sure you didn't." He said, "Look, what's done is done. But we're still family. Can't we move past this?" I laughed. A bitter, cold laugh. I said, "Move past this. You've been lying to me my whole life. Putting Amanda first. Treating me like I didn't matter. And then you stole from me. Literally committed a crime against your own son. Why would I want you in my life?" My dad's expression hardened. He said I'd given him and my mother everything. Raised me. Fed me. Put a roof over my head. Paid for my education. And this is the thanks he gets. I said that's what parents are supposed to do. You don't get special credit for meeting your basic obligations. He said I was ungrateful. That I turned out to be a disappointment. That my grandmother had spoiled me and made me entitled. I said Grandma was the only one who actually loved me. The only one who saw me as more than Amanda's backup. He said that's not true, but his voice had no conviction. I said, "We're done here. You need to leave." He said, "Fine. But don't come crying to us when you're alone. When you realize you threw away your family for money. Family is forever, David. You'll regret this." I said I already regret it. I regret trusting you. I regret believing you cared about me. I regret wasting 32 years thinking we were a real family. Now get off my property before I call the police. He left. I watched him drive away on the security camera, and then I locked the door and cried. The next few months were hard. Really hard. I'd won the legal battle, but I felt like I'd lost everything else. Holidays were the worst. Thanksgiving came, and I spent it alone. Christmas too. My parents had always hosted, and obviously I wasn't invited. My cousin Jessica invited me to her place, but I declined. Didn't want to make things awkward for her with the rest of the family. I threw myself into work. Started seeing a therapist named Dr. Martinez. She helped me understand that what my family did wasn't normal. That healthy families don't manipulate and steal from each other. That I wasn't wrong for setting boundaries and protecting myself. It took months of sessions before I really started to believe it. Then about 6 months after the court case, I got an interesting phone call. It was from Amanda's husband, Kyle. He asked if we could meet for coffee. I was suspicious but curious. We met at a neutral location. A Starbucks halfway between our places. Kyle looked uncomfortable. He ordered a coffee, sat down across from me, and said, "I need to tell you something. Amanda's been lying to me. About a lot of things." I said, "Okay, what does that have to do with me?" He said, "After the court case, your parents gave Amanda $50,000. Told her it was her share of what they would have gotten from selling your grandmother's house. But they didn't have $50,000 to give. They took out a loan. A big one. With a high interest rate because their credit is terrible. Now they can't make the payments." I sat there processing this. I said, "So they went into debt to give Amanda money that was never theirs to begin with." Kyle nodded. He said, "And Amanda spent it. All of it. New car. Designer clothes. A vacation to Europe. It's gone. And now your parents are asking us for money to help with their loan payments. Asking us to bail them out." He said when I told Amanda no, that we couldn't afford it, she admitted everything. About how they'd planned to trick you. About how they'd trashed your apartment. Not directly, but they'd paid someone to do it. About how they'd been poisoning the whole family against you with lies. Kyle said once he learned the truth, he couldn't look at Amanda the same way. He was filing for divorce. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated. They'd screwed themselves over. But part of me just felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. that my family had destroyed themselves with their own greed and lies. Carl said, "I'm sorry for not listening to your side sooner, for believing their version without question. You didn't deserve any of this." I thanked him and we parted ways. A month later, I heard that Kyle and Amanda's divorce was finalized. She had to move back in with our parents because she couldn't afford her own place anymore. Around the same time, I heard through Uncle Tom that my parents were in serious financial trouble. The loan payments were killing them. They'd had to sell their car. We're talking about selling their house and downsizing to an apartment. The irony wasn't lost on me. They tried to steal my house and ended up losing their own. Amanda tried to reach out a few times, texts saying we should talk, that she was sorry, that she missed me. I never responded. She'd made her choice. Had laughed at me when I discovered their fraud. Had called me selfish for wanting to keep what was legally and morally mine. She didn't get to apologize now that her life had fallen apart. My mom tried too. Left me a voicemail on my birthday saying she loved me and hoped I'd call her back, that she wanted to fix things. But her message didn't include an actual apology, just vague statements about wanting to move forward. I deleted it. A year after the court case, I was doing better. Much better. I'd sold my grandmother's house. Got $420,000 for it. Used some of the money to buy a smaller place of my own. Put the rest in investments. I'd gotten a promotion at work. Started dating someone named Emily who was kind and honest, and everything my family wasn't. I was happy. Genuinely happy. And I'd learned something important. Blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Respect does. Trust does. My parents and sister didn't have any of those things. They were just people I happened to be related to. That's all they'd ever been. Looking back, I'm glad my grandmother left me that house. Not because of the money, though that helped, but because it revealed who my family really was. It forced me to see what I'd been blind to my whole life. That they didn't love me. They loved what I could do for them, what they could take from me. Some people might think I should forgive them, that I should be the bigger person and rebuild the relationship. But I disagree. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people back into your life who will hurt you again. It means letting go of the anger so you can move forward. And I have moved forward. Without them. If you're reading this and dealing with toxic family members, here's my advice. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything. Get a good lawyer if you need one. And don't be afraid to walk away. You don't owe anyone a relationship just because you share DNA. You deserve to be treated with respect and honesty. And if your family can't give you that, find people who will. My grandmother used to say that the family you choose is just as important as the family you're born into. She was right. I've built a new family now. Friends who actually care about me. Emily and her wonderful parents who treat me like a son. Uncle Tom and cousin Jessica who stood by me. That's my real family. The people who showed up when it mattered. The people who told the truth even when it was hard. The people who loved me without conditions. As for my parents and Amanda, I hear they're still struggling. Still dealing with the consequences of their choices. And honestly, they got exactly what they deserved. Karma didn't need my help. It caught up with them all on its own. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this.